Guys, what is going on? It is your favorite Northern Virginia realtor here, Chris Colgan with EXP Realty. And I gotta tell you, as somebody who works with a ton of first-time home buyers, probably about 30% of all of my transactions are first-time home buyers. There are a ton of mistakes I am seeing first-time home buyers make in this market and when buying a home, specifically here in the Northern Virginia area. So let's get into my 7 things that I am seeing the most. And if you appreciate this, definitely like the video. And as always, subscribe to my channel. I mean, my God, I'm just begging you. And as always, if you're thinking about buying or selling a home, text me anytime at the number below or email me info@colganteam.com. So let's get into my 7 biggest mistakes. So number 1, and you know what, you're gonna be like, Chris is just saying this because he's a realtor, but number 1 is not having the right realtor. And this is why I talk about this all the time. And I don't really like to, I never bash other realtors, right? Like, this is not something I do, but one of the things is it is super easy to get a real estate license, and most agents, they don't know about the different types of markets, the different types of loans, what is going on with the market currently. Like, all the time when I pull stats, I can tell you in 2 seconds what is going on with each county in Northern Virginia, what's the local news that is happening, what road is being put in, what you should look for, what you shouldn't look for. I talk to my lender every week about different rates. And then also our company Place is partially owned by Goldman Sachs. So I get a lot of financial information that they just don't share publicly. There's a lot of things I know, but the biggest thing is you got to know the local market here in Northern Virginia. Things change all the time. I've had some buyers recently message me from out of town or out of state on YouTube, and then they've said, hey, you know, I want to buy a home here, and this is why, because my job is going to be here. And I'm like, no way, that is way too far, or that's not going to be a great place, but this place would be better. Or they say, I want to look at this place. I'm like, trust me, you wouldn't want to live there. So having the right realtor can go a long way. You know, I say this, I know a lot of people have friends that are realtors, but just make sure they are full-time and know what they are doing. Number 2, this is a trap. I can't even tell you. It really got worse when TikTok came along, and especially during the pandemic, is a lot of people, and I almost feel like someone who I shoot down like dreams all the time. Probably about half my calls are this, to be honest, but half the people say, you know what, I want to build my dream home on some land, and they want to go out looking at land. Here's the thing, right? Northern Virginia in general, even when you get out some of these outlying counties, there is just not a lot of land around here. And a lot of times, if there is good usable land, a developer would have bought it already. The other thing is banks don't really loan money on land. So you got to have the cash to buy the land, and then you go with get it called a new construction loan. And then as you're doing each part of building the land, the bank lends out a little bit of money. So it's not one of those things where you say, you know what, I just found 1 acre, let's go ahead and build this house. When you're talking putting in septic systems and roads and all these other kinds of things, it ends up being a lot more than if you would have just went ahead and bought a resale or bought from a new builder. You know, when new builders buy houses, they build several at a time. They don't just build one at a time unless they're like a really small builder. But the odds of buying a piece of land and then building a house, especially around here where it is super expensive, is very hard. And I have seen people go down this road for 6 to 8 months. I had a guy, and I told him, not against my advice, he dropped about $25,000 that he didn't really have on getting various inspections done. And guess what? He couldn't even build the house he wanted to do. And then the bank at the end of the day was like, you don't really have enough cash for us to lend you money to build a new home. Because what do they think, right? If God forbid something happens to the economy, a terrorist attack or whatever, and they're not going to lend as much money, they're going to think in the back of their minds, this person's not going to finish the project, and we are going to be stuck with the land, which is already hard to sell. So definitely keep that in mind. When you're talking like container homes or whatever, like ship craters, whatever they are, people like banks don't lend money on those. They just don't. A lot of times you'll see on TikTok, they lend money all the time, or it's like private financing, but it is near impossible unless you're somebody that just already has a ton of land. Number 3, a really huge one, now that we're back in football season, is going to be not using a local lender or a lender that is knowledgeable here on Northern Virginia. I have a lender that I work with. They work at a national company, but he lives in Loudoun County. So a lot of times people will watch somebody who's on the Super Bowl commercial or whatever, and then they'll fill out an application, and then come to find out that lender doesn't know about all the programs in Virginia, or the lender doesn't know about certain areas, or that lender never picks up the phone. And when you're working with a realtor like myself, we talk to you all weekend at night, and you got to have a lender that's willing to do that. Some of these national companies, the loan officers only work 9 to 5. You're not going to get them on Saturday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when you want to write an offer on a hot property, or they may not know about a special grant that is going on here in Northern Virginia, or they're doing this for teachers or police officers or whatever. There's a lot of things they just don't know about. When you're writing an offer, a lot of times the other agent on the other side that represents the seller will say, you know what, I know that national lender there, and they never get loans done on time. There's one lender, and I'm not going to say their name because I have had customers use them, and they're good people, but they are always 2 weeks late, and every time they miss the closing, and it always drives everybody nuts. And then I'm begging the other people for an extension. You remember people people have moved out of their house already, and this bank, they think it's not a big deal, but here in Virginia, it's really a huge deal to delay a closing. So definitely keep that in mind for sure. Number 4 would be only choosing like one location. Let's just say your job is in McLean and you're like, I just want to be in McLean. That's the only place I want to be. Well, guess what? Unless you're looking at a budget of $2 million, McLean is going to be really hard. Or another one I hear is my job is at the Pentagon. I want to be close to there. Well, guess what? There's a ton of traffic. It is super expensive. You can live in certain areas, especially if you're working partially remotely, and then commute in. And there's a VRE train. There's also the metro system. There's 66 with all the new hot lanes. There's all kinds of different routes you can take. Definitely be open up to what you want. Also, if you're like, hey, you know what, I don't want any HOA or I want a bunch of land, I would also consider different options. Another thing is too, some of these townhouses are bigger than most of the houses. A lot of people don't realize that. They say, there's no way I am going to live in a townhouse, and then they go in and they're like, holy crap, these townhouses are a lot better than most houses. So definitely keep that in mind as well, but don't just be set on one location. Say you're looking to buy something in Ashburn or Sterling, which are both great areas, definitely hit us up and I can tell you some alternative areas, or I can tell you, you know what, that would be way too far to go out there. You might want to check out here. So always keep your options open. Number 5, it is just not common around here to get sellers to take lowball offers. If you're someone who goes around offering $50,000 less or $25,000 less, no matter what, you probably are never going to get an offer accepted. Most people in here in Northern Virginia price their properties pretty correctly. They know all the stats. They're really savvy homeowners. They don't go around asking for a ton of money. And if they ask for way too much, then typically the house just sits on the market and they have to reduce it. But if you're looking to save a buck and you're constantly going out and lowballing on properties, you probably are not going to get one accepted and you're going to miss out on your dream home. I've had a couple people do that, and then all of a sudden the market shifts and now they're overpaying for a house, or the house that they really wanted never came on, and then they call me 3 months later and they're like, Chris, you know what, I wish we would have pulled the trigger on that one. And I say, I know, what, you could have borrowed $20,000 over 30 years that you tried to lowball, and that's not that much more on your payment. So definitely take that into consideration. Why are you doing that? Are you looking for just to make a good deal and you want to feel like you got ahead of everybody, or do you want the dream house? Like, what is your true motivation? Or is it out of your budget? If it's out of your budget, just stay within your budget. You can always move up to a bigger home a couple years down the road. But lowballing around Northern Virginia honestly will just get you a lot of frustration. Number 6 is going to be waiting for the perfect interest rate. So when the rates are around 5, I had some people that really sat on the sidelines and they got up to 6 and they're like, we're going to wait till they go back down, and they got up to 6.5 and they're like, you know what, we better pull the trigger. You are never going to hit the perfect interest rate. The thing is, if you are in this for the long haul, the rates always go up or down, and the key is when they go down, you just go ahead and refi, or you save money and you pay it down and you get out of the mortgage insurance or things like that. But definitely you will never ever just wait and get the perfect interest rate. The best thing to do is have a lender that has their pulse on the market. They see all the news and they can almost predict what's going to happen, and then they can actually go ahead and lock you in before the rates shoot up. They go down, they can help you out with that as well, but you're never going to hit that perfect interest rate. Things change all the time and the news changes rapidly. So if you find your dream home, just go ahead and lock in, and then you can always refinance later. Number 7, last but not least, one of the bigger mistakes I always see is not taking traffic into account. Here in Northern Virginia in general, we have a ton of traffic. It's gotten a lot better in the last few years, but just keep in mind, I always tell people, look, if you're coming out here to check out the area, we'll definitely show you around, but get up in that morning and try out that commute and see if you really like it. Like, say if you're working in downtown DC and then your house is in Front Royal, Virginia, which is like an hour and a half away, you throw in an extra hour of traffic, that is a long way into work. So always check it out. Look at alternative options like the VRE train, or like I said, the metro. There's all kinds of different options, but definitely take traffic into account. If you're thinking about moving here, I can definitely give you advice on that. So don't just go on Google Maps and say, oh, you know what, it's only 20 miles away from the White House. Well, guess what? That's probably really an hour and a half away from where it is. It's not really a 20-minute drive. Or 20-mile drive. It's going to be a lot longer than you expect. So definitely keep that in mind. And I'll tell you what, a lot of the outer suburbs area do better than they do further in, because the further in properties have a lot more of condo fees. They have a lot more higher expenses, and people like having a little bit more spacious area. So don't let that deter you. Sometimes, yeah, longer commute can definitely not be as fun, but it doesn't always mean you're not getting a good property. All right, so I hope you enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you're thinking about buying or selling, definitely text me at the number below. Most of our business comes from this YouTube channel. We just had this huge client party, and a bunch of my YouTube viewers actually showed up, which I really enjoyed. They had been texting me, asking questions, and they weren't ready to buy just yet. And also, you know, and I didn't mind that. We just showed them around. We talked about the market. We had a good time. We do 4 client parties a year. We'd love to have you. Like I said, just shoot me an email or a text. As always, follow me on Instagram at Chris Colgan Team. Like I always brag about this. I don't know why, but we have 1.5 to 2 million people a week looking at that Instagram here in the DC market. I'm always talking about breaking news and what is happening in our market, so definitely check that out and follow me. As always, I'll see you at the top or from the top.